You're listening to the Jefferson Exchange. I'm Mike Green. If you've driven through southern Oregon's Rogue Valley or the Klamath region this summer, you might have seen smoke or signs that warn of active burning. And while many are surprised to learn that prescribed burns can take place at the very height of the summer fire season, these strategic actions are critical to protecting vulnerable communities. Today, we're learning about the prescribed burning operations of All Hands, All Lands. It's a collaborative initiative that brings together a diverse coalition of organizations to implement strategic burns, such as the recent 1-acre burn in Orleans. Joining us to tell us more are my two guests. Will Harling is the Restoration Director for the Mid Klamath Watershed Council, and he's the burn boss for these operations. Welcome to the Exchange, Will.
Thanks, Mike.
And Kathy McCovey is a Karuk Tribal member. She's also a cultural fire practitioner and co-executive director of the Mid Klamath Watershed Council. Welcome, Kathy. Okay, so we're having a little trouble getting Kathy on the phone. Well, let's address the question that many listeners will be thinking about. We're currently in August, at the height of the summer fire season. Why are you burning right now?
Well, Mike, originally when we started burning 25 years ago, I thought the same thing. And when I heard stories that tribes burned throughout the summer, I just couldn't comprehend because of the fuel loading that was out there from 100 plus years of fire suppression, fire exclusion. But as I learned over time, pretty much every evening in the summertime, we are in prescription to burn. So the temperatures drop, humidities rise, wind dies down, and there's a really solid burn window. And too often we wait for these fall burn windows that are very fleeting and short and end with one rainstorm. So what we've realized is there's this incredible opportunity to create defensible space around our communities and to restore native habitats through prescribed fire at the this time of year when the fuels will actually burn. And so we keep our burns relatively small to make sure that we can put them out after the burn so that they don't pose a future risk.
So you're burning in and around Orleans. Tell me about this place, where it is, and why there.
Well, we burn all up and down the Klamath River, the Middle Klamath River, say between Wichpec and I-5. And we burn, the reason there's such a strong burning culture here is it's home to the 3 largest tribes in California that have burned through cultural fire since time immemorial. And it was really that frequent fire on the land that created the diversity and abundance of resources that the tribes relied on to survive. And so, like we think of tending our gardens, these tribes cultivated the forest like a garden with fire. And fire was the tool to weed out those weedy species like Douglas firs that come in and invade the garden and suppress the food plants in the absence of fire. And so the consequence, as many of your listeners probably heard and felt, was the 2020 Slater fire that burned 125,000 acres in a single day on September 8th, 2020. And then the McKinney fire a couple years later that burned nearly 100 homes and killed 4 people. So the history of catastrophic wildfire, the cessation of cultural burning have led us to this point where our very community's survival and existence is tied to restoring frequent fire on the land. And that means networking with local, tribal, state, and federal organizations so that we can burn whenever we have good burn windows with whatever resources we have available. And that's really the secret of the All Hands, All Lands model, is that this year we've burned with over 20 different organizations. We've conducted over 40 burns and completed about 220 acres. But these acres are critical. They're right along critical access and egress routes, or right along people or around people's homes. These are the burns that are going to save a home in a wind-driven wildfire. So that cultural history of fire here, the fire threat from recent high severity wildfires, and our unique community, which is, understands that the relative risk of prescribed burning is much more preferable than the uncertain risk of a wind-driven wildfire in the heat of fire season.
Well, I understand this is also culturally related, and Kathy McCovey is a Karuk Tribal member, and I believe we have her back on the phone now. Kathy, are you there?
Yes.
Kathy, this coordinated prescribed burn effort operates under what you all call all hands, all lands. Can you share the history of that?
Well, we've come together when we started burning on the river corridor. We needed a workforce. We needed people to help us conduct these burns. And one of the ways to bring in people, but also train people, are future managers. We started the All Hands, All Lands program. So that means people from the Nature Conservancy, people from the Forest Service, people from other agencies and groups, nonprofit, can come to Orleans and come to the areas that the Mid Klamath Watershed Council is planning our prescribed burns, and they can help us with the burns. It also helps them get qualifications. And it's really important now that we do have a large, trained, diverse workforce that understands why these burns are important, that understands the ecological reasons for the burns. And so we're training people.
And where is Orleans located, and what's the population?
Orleans is located probably about 15 miles south of the Siskiyou County and Humboldt County line. I believe the population there is probably 600 now, or a little bit more. It's a Karuk village. It has been for thousands of years, and the descendants still live there. We still practice our culture. We go out and gather edible, medicinal, ceremonial plants. One of the importance of having areas burned is that we can go out and gather the plants, hunt the animals, fish, and those are subsistence activities that we conduct here. And so burning is a very essential part of that.
Now, you're also co-executive.
Director.
I'm sorry, excuse me. You're the co-executive director of the Mid Klamath Watershed Council. Is that correct?
Yes.
Tell me about that organization.
The organization, I had worked for the USDA Forest Service for 48 years, and I retired. What I saw missing was public participation, the power of the people, community involvement. Mid Klamath Watershed Council, it provides that. It provides local jobs for people. We are we are helping landowners, big and small, to cut down the fuels in their properties, and then we do prescribed burns. And then we also, we have plants program in Mid Klamath Watershed Council. We have fisheries programs, and we also have fire and fuels. Those fire and fuels programs are the help that the local community people need to deal with this large amount of vegetation that comes into on private property. A lot of homeowners here along the river are older. They're not able to actually go out and they don't have the money to invest into getting a lot of that fuels work done, or they may be older, not able to do it for themselves. So we bring in people, and that's where all hands and all lands comes in, and we work on their properties. We help them get it to a stage where they can have help to continue those fuel reductions and the private burning on into the future.
If you're just joining us, my guests are Kathy McCovey and Will Harling from the Mid Klamath Watershed Council. We're talking about their coordinated prescribed burn operations. Will, how does such a diverse group of organizations, from tribal departments to volunteer firefighters, get coordinated to do this work?
Well, it's the secret sauce, Mike. It's, we get a group of people that show up for a burn, and sometimes there's elementary school students and elderly folks and fire and forestry apprentices and universities. And what we do is we build an organizational chart that pairs experienced people with inexperienced people. And we put them in roles that they will succeed in. And this long experience that we have here with burning allows us to make sure that that organization is fit for the burns that we're planning. And so it maximizes training opportunities. It introduces people to fire in a safe way, and it leaves them with positive experiences. I mean, a lot of the people we're working with have had their homes burned down in wildfires or have suffered negative health impacts from summers filled with smoke. So it's an incredible study on how we can bring communities back to the using fire as a tool to protect our towns from wildfires.
Well, as the burn boss, how do you work with private landowners to determine if a site is appropriate and, covers all the safety checks and permits with CAL FIRE?
Yeah, I mean, this is where we shine. We've built trust with CAL FIRE over the past 25 plus years to where we have one burn plan that covers all of the units that we have, say, in Siskiyou County or Humboldt County. And so that allows us to put fire at the right place at the right time for that unit. So we're not limited to just work on a single unit. We have our plants department out there looking at the phenology of the grasses and other plants, and we have our wildlife folks out there looking to make sure that the nesting birds have fledged and there's no turtles in the units or fawns. And so that they're out there working ahead of us to make sure that when we show up with the burn resources, we're putting fire in the right place and getting the ecological objectives, maximizing those ecological objectives from those burns.
Well, I want to focus on that for a second, and we've got maybe a couple of minutes left. Kathy, people typically associate fire with destruction, but Will was just talking about the ecological benefits. Can you talk about those environmental benefits we expect to see in the burn areas over the coming seasons, particularly regarding regrowth of native plants and pollinator habitats, things like that?
Due to the extensive use of fire in the river corridor by the Karuk tribe, they molded this area. And what we do, just real quick, the strategy is along the river corridor, oak woodlands and grasslands burn about every 4 to 6 years. The mid-slope is your thermal belt. That's where the hardwoods grow. You burn in there 8+ years, whatever you're trying to encourage or inhibit. And that's mass production. That's where our hardwoods are. That's where the elk hang out and the deer. Then up towards the top of the mountain, that's where you start getting into your Douglas fir and true fir. But without fire, what happens is a Douglas fir will migrate down the slope. And it will, you will have Douglas fir to your back door. So in order to keep the Douglas fir from taking over, we use fire. Along the river corridor, one example is that this is an oak woodland grassland that's been invaded by Douglas fir. It's being shaded, all of our black oaks, white oaks, etc., are being shaded out by Douglas fir. So we break that up. Putting fire along the river corridor allows us to stop the progression of the Douglas fir. Smoke and heat is a trigger mechanism for our native plants. Our native plants are underneath all this stuff, and all these old dead trees. When those are cleared out and we burn the area, our plants come back.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there, Kathy. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. Thank you both.
Okay.